From the police state to tectonic plates, Dutch Sense and Tattoo take the temperature of tyranny on Freedom Frequency 1871, coming to you live now.
This is America. We have a founding fathers that wrote a constitution that we haven't lived by in 142 years.
Were they serious when they said they planned on owning the weather by 2025?
And if you're not pissed off, there's something wrong with you right now.
Have you guys seen what's going on outside your door lately? Need I remind you?
This is America. Are y'all going to allow it to be Russia?
Welcome back to Freedom Frequency 1871. This is Dutch Sense, and we've got the world-famous Tattoo still on the phone here. And, for the last hour, I've been talking about...
Hey,
I'm
Dutch,
sorry, Tat.
I want to say something. We talked about the fracking and all that stuff, but I want people to understand that we're not saying that fracking is just all bad. It could be. It's just a maybe. It could be that they're doing the fracking to keep the biggest volcano in the world from erupting to let off steam.
That's right.
Or they could be using that large volcano to also divide Mexico and the United States apart, so they got an ocean between. Who knows?
It might be why they're not building a fence on the southern border.
Could be.
The video that got this account terminated, Tat, you bring up a good point, which is they could be using it to prevent a large earthquake. Most people aren't familiar with this. In California, along the fault line going throughout the entire state of California, there's a series of what they call, quote unquote, I'll put quotes around it, geothermal electric plants. And what they have are shafts that they dig down and they inject water, which is then turned into steam naturally, and it turns turbines. Well, what you'll notice there throughout the day, if you watch programs like Earthquake 3D, or if you go to USGS and watch their 0.0 and greater feed. Okay, I mean, we're talking you have to be a real earthquake nerd to even notice this stuff when you're seeing 0.1s and 0.2 earthquakes. But you start seeing a couple hundred 0.1 and 0.2 earthquakes in the same spot, you're going to get curious like me and go look up and see what's there. And, for instance, Geysers, California, there's a geothermal plant built up in there where there's a series of micro earthquakes that happen every day that are man-made. And the video in question that got the account terminated raises a good point, which is that these fracking operations, these oil wells, specifically the shafts that are dug deep down in the ground, could almost act as what we could call shock absorbers. Just like a shock absorber is filled with a gas, the steam that would form from injecting deep down into the earth in a hot layer could act like a piston. It could act like a shock absorber. And so the 5.0s that happen in succession from Arkansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, followed up by a 5.9 on the far east coast on the east edge of the craton, could be that those 5.0s and the swarms that were happening were planned. And it was to avert a larger earthquake, let's say, along the New Madrid that could have been a 9.0 that just destroyed the entire Midwest. And so they settle for 3 5.0s and a 6.0 on the East Coast as opposed to one large earthquake. And it could be one giant geoengineering program. Now, guys, we are going to be taking callers. If you guys want to call in and you've got questions about this kind of stuff, I'd love to, hear your questions on it or anything else. Let me give the number out again. 567-314-9296. And I don't know if we've got anybody on the line now, but I could just definitely keep talking about this because there's a few more things that we haven't touched on yet. Okay. Nobody on the line yet. If you want to call in. The man-made earthquake angle and the volcano angle was touched on by the mainstream media last year. Most people don't know about this, that in Northern California, they are experimenting with drilling volcanoes to produce, again, geothermal steam, but we're talking the actual drilling of dormant volcanoes and turning those into some kind of power generation plant. Now, there's been talk about Yellowstone, right? Let's just get into it. I don't want to scare anybody, so let's just not go there. We're not saying Yellowstone's going to erupt. The big threat from Yellowstone, believe it or not, is earthquakes. I did an article on Robo News. If you guys go to Robo News Official over on YouTube, you will find it. And it was a Natural Geographic article that came out talking about how the largest earthquake that ever happened in recent history west of the Mississippi was at Yellowstone. And everybody assumes Yellowstone's going to erupt, but really we have to worry about what's going on underneath Yellowstone that could lead to a large earthquake. And the way Yellowstone's set up is there's a giant magma chamber, of course, that reaches from, well, Yellowstone National Park as it exists today, but it reaches far west. It curls down like a U into Idaho and even goes as far over, right over towards the Oregon, Washington state border. And there's a series of old calderas that go back, millions of years. Now, why are they in different locations? The plate moves gradually. And just like Hawaii, you know how Hawaii forms. Oh, we do have a caller on line. We'll take him in 1 second. I'll finish this thought up. In Hawaii, the way the islands form is magma comes out of the ocean floor. It pools up and builds up over time and comes out of the water. Then the earth moves and the magma chamber stays in the same spot, but the earth above it moves. And so a new island forms. Well, the same thing happened for Yellowstone. And that's what we're worried about now, is that Yellowstone could blow again at some point or give a large earthquake. And that could be very catastrophic. And they may be using these steam mitigation, fracking, drilling, mitigation operations to prevent the next disaster. Okay? And we've got Jerry on the phone. We'll go ahead and take his call.
Man.
Welcome to the show, Jerry. Thanks for being our first caller of the night.
Dutch Sense. How you doing, buddy?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, I cut out there for a second on Skype, guys. I have a slight connection problem here. I don't know what's going on. It's a little windy outside. Okay. That may be what it is.
It's the wind.
Well, okay, I didn't hear anything you said.
First joke of the night. Thanks a lot.
I think Tad can hear me, but Touch, I just wanted to call up and say I think you're doing a fine job. I appreciate all the research that you go into with the NextRad radar and all of that. Personally, I don't think that they're doing these fracking wells or drilling to relieve anything. I think you're giving them too much credit. But one thing I did want to point out, Max Kaiser had a piece on his show on RT the other day talking about how these companies that are doing the fracking, especially in Wyoming, their business model seems to be that they will suck out all the oil that's there, and then they'll just abandon the wells and go bankrupt.
Huh. Really?
Have you heard anything like that? Because he had a whole segment on it, and apparently it's a real problem because the landscape is just dotted with all of these fracking wells that have been abandoned. And so now it's going to be up to the taxpayers to clean this stuff up.
I'm not shocked by that, actually, at all. When I look up several of the frack wells, you'll notice that they're rusted, falling over. Several are destroyed. and several of the pads are overgrown. And that's just what I've noticed in the process of looking in, let's say, Arkansas or Oklahoma. I wouldn't be shocked to hear that those are abandoned. Once they deplete them, are they going to really go in and remove all the apparatus and fill up the entire shaft with concrete that goes down a mile? I mean, a mile's worth of concrete at 6 inches wide or however wide the oil shaft is. I mean, we're talking a lot of money involved in just the capping of these things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it apparently is their business model, because this has happened over and over again. And at the present time, there are all these wells in Wyoming that have just been abandoned, and it's going to be a real problem. By the way, you were talking earlier about the volcanic vents near the Salton Sea.
Yes.
And that's where I first found out about you, because I don't live too far from there. I'm over in the San Joaquin or San Jacinto Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
not too far from Salton Sea. So good work on that, and I'm glad to see you're doing a radio show. I think your personality lends itself to that. Have you ever done radio in the past?
Never. I mean, I've been on as a guest on some people's radio shows before, but I'll tell you what. I was white-knuckled last week at the first broadcast. Sweaty palms, sweaty pits. I couldn't sleep the night before. But I just like to talk. That's my problem. That's why my relatives kind of told me to get online in the first place, was go talk to all those people, because we've been talked to for every family function from God knows when. But I really enjoy it. And, some of the stuff that's happened, like you said, you found me on the Salton Sea stuff. It's been really a wild series of events that have happened that they did, like the professionals first deny, and then they come back to confirm after they have enough time to come up with a appropriate explanation, of course. And, we're doing this real time, and I'm glad that people notice. I'm so glad that someone in California noticed the story and started following it. And, who knows what could happen. You might go out there next time and look at it differently. You might go to the mud pot.
I lost you there for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Oh, now you're back.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
you might,
I know you probably got a day job, and you do this just to serve as a public service. But just want to let you know, I appreciate your intelligence and your articulate voice, and you're doing a great job. So keep it up.
Hey, I appreciate it. And just so everybody knows, I'm an entry-level carpenter, and lately I've been cutting down trees for a living to make bills, okay? It's not glamorous. I'm doing what I can to pay the bills. But something will pan out in the future. Hey, I appreciate all your kind words.
We got another call, Jerry, so it's not that I'm being rude, but got to try to get everybody in. I'm not going to let him talk forever on one person tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'll do it, man. I'll talk we're talking on the phone, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good idea. Have a good show.
Cheers, bro.
All right, thank you, buddy.
All right. Hey, that's awesome. I love taking calls. It's just like talking. I've never talked to these people before, but it's like talking to an old friend. Let's get Greg on. We got Greg up next.
Right